Hello and welcome to another episode of A Wicked Parley. I'm your host, Justin, and my fellow co-host, Rose.
Hello, everybody. Anybody sick of these yet?
No. I'm not sick of them. Hey, we could just make every episode from here on out, and then we lose all of our subscribers.
Just bye-bye. Listen, where's the interaction? I demand.
You demand the interaction? Insist upon it? Well, I mean, hey. At this point, hopefully people are taking a look at the comment section and leaving messages, and I'm able to respond. Because God knows I'm terrible with technology. That's why Rose does everything. I'm just his voice, I just I read stuff, I look up things, I have suggestions. But really the brains behind this operation, and forever, has been Rose.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Hey,
Just the tech side.
Hey, credit where credit is due, okay?
Only in the tech side. I don't know half of what we're talking about sometimes.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I almost sometimes think that I have the same thing. Kind of like today. Da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da-da. Granted, who knows 100% anything about, education?
Yeah, education
Who
is.
100% knows anything about, education? You should, since you're being educated, but.
but. Yeah.
Not always the case.
Yeah.
Granted, if you did know everything, why would you be in education? Why would you be in a class? What? I missed that joke. It's just like, what? It's just like, oh yeah, I know everything. No, you're a liar. It's like, oh, why do you makes you say that? Because you're taking this class and it's not for an easy A.
I'm more on other things. Yeah, you may notice that this particular month is a variety of pre-recorded content. Starting pretty much from May to June, we have all these episodes planned. I don't know if we were supposed to say that, but I'm going to say that anyways, because I got to be honest with the audience. And don't worry, we will be returning,
we will be returning.
Yeah, to a live broadcast, in the middle of June. So, stay tuned for that stuff. But so,
Yes.
Thank you for supporting us. And the pre-recorded content that we have for you guys is, of course, we're going to try our best to make sure this is entertaining for you. And tonight's episode is going to be discussing some of the relevant information for education that has come out in the last couple of weeks as of this particular recording, which is, of course, May 3rd. So,
Yes.
if you're seeing this in June and you're like, this isn't this week, cut some slack. This shit still matters, I mean, come on now.
Yeah, it's only a month. A lot can happen in a month, but...
God knows a lot can happen in a month.
Yeah, goodness gracious, gosh almighty. Freaking pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? You're just you used to go out in the middle of the woods, in late January. You go out in the middle of the woods. You go spend a month in the woods. You're fishing, you're hiking, you're doing that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then you come back and you're like, wow, it's like the freaking end of the world here, zombie apocalypse.
It's like I was gone for one day. What happened?
What would really suck is that you come back and you're like, you know what? I really need to buy toilet paper right now. I mean, we're on the last roll, and you get there and you're like, holy shit, there's nothing. There's nothing here.
What happened to all the teepee?
I guess we're gonna buy napkins. Oh, there's no napkins? Oh, we are in trouble now. Where's the bathroom here? Let me just go ahead and steal some shit. No,
Yeah. So, we have a series of little short articles here that we're going to review. So, hopefully by the time this thing airs, hopefully they will be relevant still.
Oh, I'm sure they will. All right. The first story. Parents fear their children are burned out, survey suggests. All right, before we even read this, I'm just going to say this now. Yes, you should be concerned. Because
I wonder why.
That is a real thing. Indeed. Education is supposed to be enlightening, exciting, It's supposed to be filled with curiosity and exploration.
The more you
Yeah,
know.
but modern education, it consists of a series of memorize this, fill in the blank here. Here's a multiple choice 60 questions in 60 minutes. Like these aren't things. These are not things that you should be doing regularly, if at all. And I certainly don't believe they're helpful in any real way. So, I can understand. So, all right. So the article, let's see here. More than 2/3 of parents, 70% surveyed, believe that their child is experiencing more burnout than they are. This new survey of 2,000 parents of school-age children found that 66% of parents said that their child comes home with a low mental battery after school, and half of them notice some sort of signs of stress and burnout in their child. Okay, so first of all, I think I want to take both sides of this, okay? I want to say, hey, okay, what the hell does a low mental battery really mean? Mm-hmm. Like, let me ask you this. If you were to read that, what does that mean to you?
I'm thinking, are they tired? Are they fatigued? Are they, like, socially drained? What's happening?
Okay, all right. To me, I think that's just like the sign of someone who's had a high sugar diet and is lazy. To me, it's like, oh, that's a sugar crash right there. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that's for sure the case, but I'm just saying, like,
there could be a mix of both.
Yeah, it could be, and also caffeine, perhaps. I mean, I know a lot of energy drinks are being consumed nowadays in the younger demographics, and those are not great for you.
So much Red Bull, so many monsters.
Oh, for real. Like I've seen a gross amount. I used to think my Mountain Dew obsession was bad. This is another level.
The caffeine addiction is real.
Very real. Yeah. Top signs of stress were changes in sleep pattern, 44%, changes in appetite, 37%, physical complaints such as headaches or stomach pains, 35%, the age-old get out of class, decreased interest in activities they once enjoyed, 34%, and avoidance of social interaction and activities, 33%. Okay, all right, so I'm going to take that last one first. Avoidance of social interactions and activities. It couldn't be because there's a space filled with, if you do this or do not believe in what I think, then you are, punitively represented, that you are judged, and something bad is going to happen to you because you didn't say the right thing at the right time. It couldn't have anything to do with that.
Peer pressure and bullying is a thing.
Well, it's always been a thing. But what I'm more specifically saying is that, let's say hypothetically, right? You're you have a bunch of peers who maybe identify a specific sort of way.
Okay.
All right. Whatever that is. Who knows what it is? I'm not going to point things. I think everyone can read between the lines what I'm saying here. Okay? And they don't agree with that. Or maybe they don't identify that way. If they don't go along with the group, then they're ostracized. And they could face some sort of, penalty. People aren't interested in doing that, so they disengage. I think that might explain that. These numbers
to keep themselves safe.
Yeah. I also think decreasing interest in activities they once enjoyed. Could it be that they perhaps are connected with this? Perhaps social activities, of some kind, are connected, and so that's why these numbers are so similar. They're within 1% of each other. These are very similar signs of stress. I think the sleep pattern and the change in appetite, that's actually kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because, okay, so think about this for a second. It doesn't say that, it says, the change in appetite just says it's changed. It doesn't say if it's more or less. I'd be curious to know if they're more hungry or less hungry. Because I think, personally, that whenever you are, having, a disruption in your sleep, the less sleep you have, the more hungry you are. The more sleep you have, the less hungry you are. So I would imagine someone who oversleeps is going to be thinner. Someone who undersleeps is going to be thicker.
So you're wondering about the correlation?
Yeah. Obviously we know correlation is not causation, but...
No. But it'd be interesting to see the correlation.
Certainly.
If any.
Certainly. I think it's probably this. Like, I think all this points to the fact that various people probably can't be. They don't feel like seen. They don't feel like they don't feel a part of society, and so because they're not feeling a part of it, they're just kind of removing themselves. And this kind of isolation could probably lead to like a lot of symptoms of like loneliness and things that could be potentially much worse down the line. So, I mean, I don't know. All right. Anyways, the survey conducted by One Poll on behalf of Presence, a teletherapy. That's a terrible idea, by the way, teletherapy. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, therapy in any form is better than nothing, but teletherapy, trust me when I say this, like, it's missing a human connection. Like, there's something that you need in person. Also found that 81% of parents wished schools offered more accessible mental health services amid the mounting youth mental health crisis and what the Surgeon General has characterized as a loneliness epidemic. Okay, all right. You know, I have to agree. I mean, like, I was thinking that already. But, you know, I kind of had like this like suspicion that a large portion of the reasons for why certain people are inclined to kind of like, you know, be withdrawn is going to lead to those particular symptoms anyways. And it's just awful. What do you think though? Do you think that that's fair?
The whole loneliness epidemic?
Yeah. Do you think that's something that's like, you think stress in school is leading to that, or do you think that there are environmental factors that are weighing in on that?
I think there's quite a number of environmental factors that are related to that because it's like, I know that in a lot of countries, not every COVID restriction has been released or relaxed too much. So it's just like, yes, some parts of the world are, you know, freeing themselves from these restrictions, but others aren't. So it's just like they're still under those restrictions. And when you just get stuck into a singular area for long enough, ooh. So it's like that's also, I'm wondering how much of this like loneliness epidemic is also just because of the legitimate pandemic.
I mean, honestly, it's probably, how do I say this? There was a discussion that we were having before we started this recording, right? And it kind of loosely connected with the idea that perhaps something to do with the COVID vaccination had something to do with perhaps severe depression. And there's going to be an episode later on in a couple of months where we're going to talk about this in more depth because I want to get the data for it. But I think that there might be some sort of correlation between these two things. And I think that it's not it probably isn't just the whole lockdown when it came to the COVID that affected the outcomes when it comes to this for children. I think there could also be other factors involved in it, and I'd like to explore it more in the future.
Yeah, no, that's why I questioned is like how much of it is from actually school or versus how much is actually pandemic or versus, you know, everything else.
I mean, I think it's hard to tease apart the two things to figure out specifically which is causing what.
Yeah, a lot of interconnections.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's many facets to all this. So.
Makes it hard to determine data. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, anyways, so, yeah, when it comes to that whole thing, I think that more information needs to be looked at. All right, the next story we have has to come from Oakland. Oakland teachers could strike Thursday. You know, I actually know a little bit about this. Well, I don't know this personally.
They could strike tomorrow.
Yeah, they could strike tomorrow. Yeah. No. So like when it was coming, when I was getting more information as graduation was approaching, for me there was a whole bunch of job opportunities listed for Oakland for teachers. I think they knew this was coming, and so they kind of like. Sort of like we're probably trying to get more people to come in to kind of like work, and so that way in case there was a strike that there would still be people to actually teach. So I think that, you know, this might have been a thing, and I think that not a lot of people like looked into it. So the teachers have a little bit more power, which wouldn't surprise me. All right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay, so Oakland teachers will go on strike Thursday if they cannot reach an agreement with the Oakland Unified by that day. Oakland Education Association leaders at a news conference Monday. The strike would affect 35,000 K through 12 students. Jesus, that's a lot of students.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah. Oakland Unified and the teachers union have been in negotiations since October over a number of issues, including increased pay, campus safety, and reduced class sizes. Union leaders claim district officials have come to negotiations unprepared and that they are not bargaining in good faith. The union is striking over the district's unfair labor practices, said President Ismail Armendariz. I'm going to say, I hope I said that right.
No.
I didn't say it right. Okay, how do I say it?
Let's see.
Ismail
Armendariz?
Armendariz. Okay, hey, cool.
I don't know. I'm probably getting it wrong too.
All right, you know what? It's okay. We promise you we have done everything we can to avert this strike, Armendariz said. The district has truly failed our students, and the time for us to act is now. Oakland Unified issued a statement saying its leadership was disappointed to hear about the strike announcement. We are pleased to hear that the OEA will continue to negotiate with us at the bargaining table. It stated, we look forward to reaching an agreement that benefits our students, educators, and district. How likely do you think that's really going to be? I know for a fact that reducing the size of the classroom is going to help keep the campus safe, and keeping teachers there is going to only happen when they have the funding necessary to actually do the job. Oakland isn't exactly an inexpensive place to live. It's in the Bay Area in California, for those who don't know where this is. And I think the average income for most people in that immediate area, at least the Bay Area, well, not specifically pertaining to exactly Oakland, but just Bay Area in general, is pretty expensive. And I think they get paid somewhere in the neighborhood of around $55,000, which, let me tell you, it's not very much. Not very much when it comes to the living cost in the area. So I'd have to imagine a lot of these people who teach probably commute. And they probably commute very far. At least an hour. Probably more.
Yes.
Yeah, and that, I think, means that they have to be pretty dedicated, and I just, something tells me that getting more money is going to be the only way this thing's going to probably get wrapped up in a peaceful way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, they continued, we appreciate the hard work for both negotiating teams as they have worked nearly nonstop to come to a resolution. Our team has remained at the bargaining table daily since Thursday and is committed to continuing to work in good faith toward a contract that works for both sides. We remain optimistic that we will collectively come to a resolution in time to prevent the teachers from hitting the picket lines and keeping our kids in school.
So they've been at the bargaining. So if I have my timeline correctly, they've been negotiating since Thursday by the time this article hits, and they essentially plan to strike a week after beginning negotiations?
No. They've been negotiating since October. So they've that to me is crazy to think about, because it means that they've been at the negotiation table for 8 months, and I've seen no significant change.
Eesh.
And to me, that tells me that they're probably at an impasse, and whenever someone's at an impasse, it's almost always related to money.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sickened by this, because I think that we can do so much better.
We could. People aren't.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. Those poor students. What the heck? They don't deserve this.
No, they do not. All right. Our next story has to do with LGBTQ young people and suicidal ideations. Yes. Survey: 41% of LGBTQ young people seriously considered suicide in the last year. I kind of would like to know where specifically this came from, and hopefully towards the end of the article they say where, because that's a pretty big statement. It's a big claim.
Yeah, I think they say it in the. Huh, it looks like it's mentioned at least.
Yeah, but like
in
that's
the first little sentence.
Yeah, but like that just. I want to see the actual survey itself. I want to see the actual.
You're talking about the actual survey.
Yeah, I want to see the actual survey with where it was actually conducted, because that's a pretty big deal.
I don't know if the actual survey is in this thing, considering this seems to be synopses.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. The Trevor Project, a suicide prevention group for young LGBTQ people, has released its annual 2023 U.S. National Survey on Mental Health of LGBTQ young people. Many of its findings are dire. 41% of LGBTQ young people seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. The rates were highest for young people who are not cisgender, meaning they do not identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. Transgender men, 56%, transgender women, 48%, and non-binary genderqueer young people at 48%. See, this is why I want to look at the survey, because those numbers sound just wacky. It doesn't, like, some of those numbers don't really make much sense to me. But then again, that's why knowing these things is more important. The survey found that the LGBTQ youth who receive support and acceptance at home, school, in the doctor's office, and in local policy debates were less likely to suffer from poor mental health, including suicide attempts, suicidal ideation, anxiety, and depression. That's just also another big, strong statement, because there's a lot of research that doesn't support that.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of research. Yeah, because, like, the thing is that statistically, and these, of course, are coming from us.gov suicide statistics. And if we need to, like, in the comment section, if anyone wants to know the exact citation, we can throw that up. But they talk about, like, the suicide rate amongst men and women, plus transgendered men and transgendered women, and other not cisgendered peoples. And the thing is that many of the people whom were born biologically male did have a higher suicide rate than the people whom were born biologically female. And that just tracks with virtually all current statistical data surrounding suicide. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but we don't need to go into that. But the part that, like, makes me kind of, like, look at this and think, wow, that's a really strong statement, is because the previous surveys and other things like that, where they asked people who, had these suicidal ideations, like, about their life, they didn't seem like acceptance was a factor, like, one way or another for a lot of them. It's not that there weren't any, it's just, by and large, that wasn't the hugest thing. And so I kind of, like, I mean, it's a hopeful thing, and I certainly think that people should be accepted for who they are, but I don't think that statement rings true, and I have concerns. But yeah, I'll
concerned about the true correlation between the things.
Yeah, I think that, like, they have this, like, because the way I'm looking at this, right, is that they make a big claim, right, in the beginning, and they throw a bunch of these, like, percentages that sound really high, like they sound almost like 50% of the people who identify like that, right? And then they make that particular claim right after that. And to me, that's kind of concerning, because, I mean, go to anybody who is LGBTQ and talk to them and talk about their experiences. I'd be willing to bet that on average, if you talk to people like that, you're probably going to find different numbers. I don't think those numbers are accurate. But maybe I'm wrong. I could be.
Without mentioning the demographic, it's a little difficult, or like how the sampling took place.
Yeah, it feels a little out of context. But maybe they'll explain more. So we'll delve deeper into it. Researchers with the Trevor Project say that these findings demonstrate that bigotry and victimization harm the mental health of LGBTQ youth, and that support and acceptance can be life-saving. Yep, it's a big claim. As the existence of LGBTQ young people continue to be unfairly put up for debate, it's critical to consistently underscore that these challenges are not inherent to the LGBTQ identity, but rather stem from stigma, discrimination, and violence, says Dr. Radhana Nath, Vice President of Research for the Trevor Project, in a statement. Yeah, sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Yep. Ranita.
Yeah. Ranita Nath.
Ranita, probably, but like,
Nath?
without hearing it, I'm thinking Nath, yeah.
Ranita Nath. Okay. I'm thinking like math, but like N instead of M. Like, forgive me if I have it wrong. Yeah, those are, there's a lot to unpack there. Like, so first of all, I mean, I guess like one thing I want to say about this is that there is always, as far back as there have been recorded histories, there has been people who would fall under the LGBTQ, umbrella, probably through all of human history, and certainly through most of documented human history. The idea of existence, I think, is a stretch. Like I know it's a statement, so like maybe they're trying to be, like connect, with people in some way, and so maybe they're using some language to kind of like do that, but yeah, no, like like the idea of existence, that part is weird to me. I think the part that's up to debate has to do with, certain like nuances associated with some elements of particularly the trans group of people, the transgender group, particularly pertaining to the use of certain hormones and certain surgeries that I think people are doing too young. If you're not old enough to drink alcohol, why are you old enough to completely change, your physiological makeup, everything that is, what you are? Because this is a transformative time, and I think being supportive is important, but I think also telling people certain things and like basically celebrating them, making them feel like they're more than they are, is a really bad idea, even if it comes from a good place. But yeah, no, that's there's a lot there to that's very it's very charged, and I think that it paints a picture that I think isn't accurate. But then again, who am I to say? I'm some straight white guy, so I mean, hey, I'm certain that people are going to call me a bigot, so bring it on.
Well, shall we get into some of the findings it has?
Certainly, but I just want to say one more thing before we do that. I love all people from all backgrounds, and I think that everyone's wonderful in their own way, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their way of being, walk of life, belief, anything like that at all. So just know that. But for people who watch, like, that's my stance, that's my viewpoint when it comes to that part. So, okay. Here are some key findings. I'm gonna go one at a time through these things, so that way we can kind of analyze them, because there's a lot here. The survey found that 60% of LGBTQ young people reported they have felt discriminated against in the past year due to their sexual orientation or identity. 24% reported they were physically threatened or harmed. 53% of respondents said they were verbally harassed at school. Okay, I buy that 100%. Like, I buy that one 100%. I would even say it's probably higher. It's underreported. 100%. I mean, hell, I have been discriminated against, and I'm a straight white guy.
People will find whatever they can to just hurt other people.
Certainly.
If they feel that strongly enough.
Certainly. And if you're in school, man, children be fucking ruthless.
Children are
Like,
acting like, oh
y-
boy, like you think adults are bad. Look at children who've
yeah,
got no filters.
yeah, like that can be,
And don't, and like, especially if they don't understand exactly how harmful, they just want to hurt.
yeah, like that to me, I think, because I think like hurting gives power, and they don't understand like that's not the right kind of power you want.
No, no, no. They'll figure it out later when they're adulting when it's way too late.
Yeah, probably. Um, but I will say this too. All right, and I'm not trying to blame the victims with this, but I think it's important to say you
Mm.
guys gotta stop doing the rainbow colored hair. You know, like the bizarre clothes. Okay. You want to know why? Like, I think that sometimes like people get attacked. It's because they paint a target on their back, and it's not
Mm.
that it's right. Okay, but if you don't want these kinds of things, don't incite them. Like, I mean, you can be you without basically wearing next to nothing in a rainbow colored whatever. Like, I've seen some rather untasteful things on campus, at my campus, that have to do with this, that I think are out of line. And it
Mm.
wouldn't surprise me if a bigot, the person who thinks that they're high and mighty, goes out of their way to, attack them or discriminate against them in some way. It wouldn't surprise me. It's not right. It's not fair. But I think that if you don't want these things to happen, maybe that's a path to consider. And I know that the argument is that, like, well, if you bend that way, then you're just going to let them walk over you. It's like, no, that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes you
Yeah,
get
but
integrated into society. You want to say
yeah, the
something?
hard part about that argument is like I've also heard that for just like, outside of these scenarios too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like,
Yeah.
like the whole if a person doesn't want to get, assaulted, they shouldn't dress a certain way type of scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I think that absolutely 100% makes sense.
Mm.
I'm not one of those people that's going to be like, wear what you want to wear. No. You don't go into the savannah butt naked and think, I'm not going to get eaten by a lion. Like, that's just like, I mean, there's a reason, you wear certain things. You don't go mountain hiking, in flip flops. You're going to hurt your feet. You go in
I
boots. Like there are
don't think
reasons.
that's what they're talking about.
I know that, but what I'm saying is that, like, I think that, like, if you decide to wear something scantily clad and you go to an environment where a bunch of people are going to get intoxicated and basically have some of their inhibitions removed, you are inviting danger into your life. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but and I'm not saying that it's okay. But what I'm saying is that if you have a gun that's loaded, 100% of the time, you're going to be in an environment where you have a loaded gun. How many times do you have to have situations before that gun gets used? I'd be willing to bet it's not zero. So, like, that's my whole perception of this, is that if you do something like this, you are eventually going to have this interaction. And also, whoever told you that's liberating lied to you. Okay, like, that's not liberating. All right, that's like being manipulated by an oppressor. So, like, anyways, that's a whole other thing. That's a whole side tangent. All right, back to the things. Half of transgender and non-binary people said none of the people they live with respect their pronouns, and 21% of those respondents attempted suicide in the last year. Rates were lower for respondents who lived in homes where everyone respected their pronouns, 12%. Okay, that's hard.
Mm.
Like, those numbers,
That's hard.
those are hard, because, like, for me, how do I put this? Like, I'm not a person that's going to particularly go out of the way of somebody to be an asshole, right? Like, if I meet somebody on the street and they look like they're a woman, right? I'm going to refer to them as she, unless that person talks to me and tells me I'm a he. Or vice versa. I'm not going to make the assumption, that they're anything other than what they clearly physically look like. And if I'm not sure, then I don't talk to them at all.
Eh.
Like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I won't use those terms until I know, right?
Mhm.
And I wouldn't even say it's about a respect thing. I think a lot of people have a stick up their ass about this shit because they're like, I'm a woman, and because they transitioned, or I'm a man and they transition. It's like, unless they know you, you cannot assume that everyone is inside your head and knows the things you think. So
Just a little bit.
so you have to have a level of humility and understand that, like, this is a changing time. This is a time where we are radically getting used to things, like new things. We're having to try and figure out how we can live with certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot to say about this particular general subject, but I'm going to try and move it along by just simply saying the fact that I think those statistics are wrong. There's no way that that's right. I would have to imagine that people who basically think that people don't respect their pronouns is probably a hell of a lot higher. I think the suicide rate would probably be a lot less. I don't think I don't think saying I want to commit suicide counts as an attempt. And I think that that's probably the case. And I think the idea of connecting it to people whom lived in homes where people respected pronouns, that doesn't make a lot of sense either. Mostly because a lot of the people who live in that situation likely feel like they're hostages and being forced to go along with it. Because the people who are experiencing that understand that if they don't accept it, then there might be negative connotations that go with it, and they would never want to harm their child that way or their friends that way. So I'm very skeptical of the numbers. Like, those don't ring true. But like I said, I could be wrong, and I know I'm gonna get like lit the fuck up. If anyone watches this, who cares? Like, they're gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's a bigot." I swear I'm not. I'm just trying to be rational about this. All right. Do you have anything to say about that?
I'm just curious about like the wording and the numbers and whatnot.
I mean, it's weird, right?
Hmm?
Like, it's weird, right? Like, am I crazy for thinking that's so strange, the language they use?
Like for me, I've always just taken data as like okay, but unless I see like the actual results without all the cleanup and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I never trust I never trust reported statistics unless I can also view the data like if it's public source, open source.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like the thing with statistics is you can have the numbers, but people can manipulate them however the heck they want, really.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, they can literally take entire, like, if there's, let's say, like, hypothetically, right, like, there's a whole bunch of people who fall outside the predictable range for their survey, they can
Mm-hmm.
throw out those numbers because they'll screw up the ratios.
Yeah.
And who's to say what
So
the
it's just like
percentage
they
of
can
that
get
is?
rid of, yeah, they can get rid of outliers, they can pull out correlations that don't actually exist. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of testing. It's something that if you're really curious about, the actual true results, you have to not only get the data yourself, you have to run your own tests
Mm-hmm.
and hope to God those tests are actually correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this whole subject is difficult because of the time that we're doing it in.
Mm,
Like, right now, like, if we're going to be really honest about it, right? Transgendered and really just LGBTQ rights in general are really a hot button right now. They're
mm,
they're they're in contention in the sense that we're trying to find a way to integrate everyone into society in a way that everyone can accept. And I think we're making a lot of progress. In a lot of ways. But I think there's also a lot of people who aren't willing to cross that for whatever reason. And I think that those people have a right to have that opinion. Just like I think the people who have positive views about this also are entitled to those opinions. Because I think everyone's entitled to their opinion about things.
mm.
And I think that, like, this whole thing sounds biased. Like, this
I
whole
mean, I'm
thing.
taking a look at something that's currently not on the viewing screen for
Mhm.
our viewers, and it absolutely is.
Okay, so that's like, just
Because
for
it's like just looking at how they got their sample, it's already like pretty biased.
what have you found so far?
So if I scroll down a little bit, they mentioned that the Traverse Project annual survey relies on a sample of, for this one in particular, 28,524 LGBTQ people between ages 13 and 24 years old who were recruited via targeted ads on social media.
Wow. Yeah.
So it wasn't a random thing, it was targeted ads. So not only do you have to have social media, you have to essentially click on the right topics or search up the quote correct topics to even get this ad. And then you have to be willing to like actually click on the dang thing, which considering cybersecurity and cyber safety, And there's only like 28,000. That's not like in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it seems like a huge number. It's not.
Well, no, I mean, like, here's the thing, though. Like, that this is one of the main things. Okay, this is gonna make me sound super terrible. Do I go?
Oh dear.
All right, I'm gonna say it. I don't care. Okay, so like LGBTQ people comprise a small fraction of the population. Okay, I don't think that there's a way to definitively say that that's not true, under the grounds that if you look at the number of people, if you look to your left and you look to the right, good chance most of the people that you're going to look to your left, look to right, are probably going to be straight. You know, they're probably going to be heterosexual in nature. This means that the majority of the people who this applies to is a very small group of people. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood. I'm going to give them a huge percentage here. I'm going to call it 15% of the population. It's way more than it's probably like 4, but I'll give them 15. And I'll give them 15 because there's a lot of women out there and a lot of guys out there that are a little bit curious about different kinds of things. And so maybe they identify for a few years like this. And so, you know what? Call it what it is. I'll give them the 15%, okay?
Okay.
There's still 85%, you know, like that aren't in this group. And so like to suggest, right? Let's just say hypothetically, right?
Okay.
And to suggest that every single person who identifies in this particular demographic also has these particular experiences, I think ignores a vast section of people's lived experience. It's not that no one experiences problems. Everyone does. It's part of the human experience. When you grow up, you're facing adversity every day. You know, when you're going through puberty, your body's changing every day. Things are happening every day. And it doesn't really stop until 25 to 27, depending on if you're a man or a woman biologically. All right? And so at the end of the day, like this section of people, it's so small considering the fact that is there like something like 400,000 Americans?
I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, sure. How many Americans exist in the United States currently, right now?
The number of Americans, current population of the United States of America is 336 million.
Okay, I was off by a big chunk, but like a couple LAs, like but like still though, like realistically speaking, there are hundreds. There's like over 300 million people in the United States, and even if we give 15% of the population, actually, you know what? What's the estimated population of people who are LGBTQ in comparison to the rest of the population that's heterosexual in the U.S.?
Let's see, estimated LGBTQ population in the U.S. Oh gosh. Let's see. The current first thing listed under Google, so take this with a grain of salt, is a headline saying, "We are here, LGBTQ plus adult population in United States reaches at least 20 million, according to Human Rights Campaign Foundation report." Okay,
so 20 million. Okay, what's divide that for me in percentages. Fast math here.
About 6%.
Wow. So I gave them a full 9% more than they probably represented. Either way, that's Google grain of salt. Let's just give it to what it is, right? All I'm going to say is that I'm not going to read the rest of this because I actually don't think it's real. Like when it comes to the figures, the experiences that are here, we already kind of understand. A lot of them are mental health related. A lot of them are going to be reporting, like people who are transitioning. A lot of people are going to be talking about various elements of psychiatric health. Don't get it wrong. I think these are real problems. And I think that if it affects one person, it matters. Okay? But I also think it's important when talking about things to properly frame it in the correct way. And if it isn't correct, then we need to say it's not correct, and we need to move the fuck along. So, like that's
All right.
That's going to be what it is. So if we see other future articles that are like this, know that a lot of times I see something that's interesting, and I'm like, let's read that and let's talk about that. I don't go through the entire thing all the time. So just go with me on this.
Yeah.
We're going on a journey.
Speaking of stories and speaking of journeys, how many more you got time for?
Let's do 2 or 3 more.
2 or 3?
2 or 3 more.
All right. Let me pull up the next one, though.
All right.
All right. So the next one is this one.
All right. Current solutions to pandemic learning loss may be flawed, research suggests. Oh boy. Isn't that what you want to hear? You want to hear about like solutions we have for pandemic learning? It's the data's wrong.
I mean, it's been flip-flopping like for the last couple of years, so.
Yeah. All right.
Ooh.
Let's dive into it.
Most of the hybrid, goodness gracious. Like, look at that.
How many people were like just buying shit on Amazon while they're on a Zoom call class? That had to have happened a couple times, a couple million.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I believe it, 100%.
Most of the programs schools have implemented to address COVID learning loss are doomed to fail. That's what a wonderful way of saying things. New research suggests, despite well-intended and rapid responses, solutions such as tutoring or summer school may miss their goal, as the 74 reports. Okay, interesting. Honestly, like that makes sense to me. Primarily because most times no one wants to go to school when it's summer and it's like you see everyone else able to hang out. And tutoring only works to a point. You have to be ingrained and interested in the subject material. If it's tedious, if it's boring, I mean, like, you're probably not going to be that passionate about it. I know of plenty of people who studied a whole bunch of things while they were attending various levels of education. And I can honestly tell you, most of those people don't recall most of the things they studied.
I know I don't.
Don't admit that.
What?
You are a professor. You are literally pursuing a PhD. Do not admit that. That's
What,
terrible.
you think I know much about my freaking history lessons?
Okay, stop, please. We're not going through gaps of education with Rose. Like that's not a thing. Dear God, I just see it now. Like host is like in the comment section. Rose gaps. Do it. No. Yeah, honestly, like I think it doesn't make sense. I mean, no one really cares about these sorts of stuff, and unless you're particularly passionate, it isn't going to help you. So that's already, I'm in agreement with the article. I feel bad already. All right. The Center for Research on Education Outcomes, the CREDO team at Stanford University, tracked learning patterns in 16 states to see how recovery efforts will affect students' academic careers, and showed that their pandemic magnified existing learning disparities. That's some words. If an average student typically gains a year's worth of knowledge in a year's time, then those with greater than average learning progress more quickly. Wait, hold on. I misread that somewhere along the lines. In a year's time, then those with greater than average learning progress more quickly. That doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it makes sense to me.
Okay, all right. I guess it's just weird to me. Conversely, those who do not learn as much as the average student gain less than what's expected. Okay, that part makes sense to me. Like, I don't know why that verbiage just kind of like was like, hey, wow, what? Like, I don't know.
You lose.
Don't do it to me. Honestly, when it comes down to it, yeah. I mean, yeah, I kind of like. There's nothing to really say other than that makes total sense to me. I mean,
It's actually logical.
it's logical. What? All right.
Something that is severely lacking in a good majority of people sometimes.
It really does. The research assumes that the pre-pandemic pace of learning is the best that can be expected without additional learning time. Fewer than 2/3 will attain that level in either subject. That I disagree with, for a lot of reasons. The idea that pre-pandemic pace of learning is the best that we can expect, that part I don't think is true. I think that before the pandemic, we were on a specific model of learning that I think had predictable outcomes. We went into the pandemic, we disrupted that particular model, and now we're seeing the effects of that disruption, and so we're calling it bad. But I think the system itself was flawed from the beginning, and I think the method by how we teach youth needs to be changed, as we've talked about many times in previous episodes. Yep. And so, I just
severely.
Yeah, I don't agree with that particular stance. I don't think it's the best we can expect. I think that it's just a very easy place to examine the difference that's happened between then and now. Also, even many years of additional instruction will yield only a small improvement. Even if schools offer an additional 5 years of education, only about 75% of students will hit that 12th grade benchmark. 1/4 will remain uneducated, the 74 reports.
Undereducated.
Yeah, undereducated, excuse me. Yeah, I still
much different than uneducated.
Well, yes, uneducated, undereducated, same difference to me.
Yeah, to you.
Yeah, to me, I understand.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
No, absolutely not.
No, I don't. I speak Justinese. It's a strange dialect of English.
I speak floof.
You speak floof? Oh, okay.
I speak floof.
Full floof. Got it.
Full floof.
I think that this particular subject in general is interesting. I would like to look at more when it comes to the pandemic. I remember my last semester at Sierra College, it's a junior college. I was taking a research class, a research methods class, and it was an in-person class, and so halfway through the semester we were forced to go online. And I remember having this conversation with one person who I felt was a very bright mind. And he said that he thought that the research that was going to be discussing the outcomes of how people interacted with the pandemic would be some of the most fascinating stuff for the next 10 to 20 years. I think he was right. I think he was right. And I think that this is going to be one of those big, giant studies that I think potentially we might actually see a benefit from this.
Yeah, I mean, currently right now we're seeing short-term effects. We need to, go for a little bit longer to see what the heck's going on.
Yeah, but some of those short-term effects are rather alarming.
Yeah, some.
Yes.
You just see if they dissipate or if they just propagate.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's wrap up with one more story. So you go ahead and pick which one's the story you want to do.
How about we end on a fun one?
Okay, fun one it is.
That one.
One way to take the sting out of college rejection letters. Ow. This hits a little too close to home.
Fair enough.
Break out the party hats. It's officially college acceptance season. And also rejection season for many. As high school seniors receive decision letters, as the New York Times reported, college applications are on the rise, according to the Common Application Report. And the result is more rejections, with many colleges bragging about their low acceptance rates.
I don't understand that.
Leading some students and teachers to embrace rejection parties. I like the idea of rejection party. Honestly, to me, okay, colleges brag about low acceptance rates, so that way the people who get into the college feel like they are more prestigious. And that prestige supposedly...
I suppose it's a pride thing.
Yeah,
it can be a pride thing, but oh gosh.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of stupid because it kind of just means that, oh, cool, so we're
it's
shanking the population of a privilege.
It's just oh yeah, it's a 5% acceptance rate. So what about the other 95%? And it's just yeah, rising up those 5%, And not every college acceptance really deserves it.
For real. Sac State. I'm sorry.
I wasn't even thinking that. I
Oh,
was just thinking
I
people
know,
who
I
like
know.
they
Harvard.
God, I'm just thinking of all the schools that literally just hand out an application
Oh, I know.
or like a diploma just so they could say, "Oh, this famous person attended our college," and I'm like, "No, you gave them a degree so you could have your name behind them."
Yeah. Not great. Not
So
great.
it's just like, "Oh yeah, we have a low acceptance rate." Okay, what's the reason for that, huh? Your standards too high? You giving it out to certain people? Who's actually getting in here? Hold on. It's like I look at those acceptance rates and I'm like, why? I see numbers. Give me the why.
Yeah. Honestly, I think.
I don't like just pure numbers anymore.
Oh my god. Says the math person.
Oh yeah, especially for statistics. I don't like pure numbers. Like I've never liked pure numbers for statistics.
Hey, no more. No, my god, no, stop it.
Absolutely not. It is forever a thing.
Okay. Social norms tell us that we should conceal rejection, feeding the false belief that there's something wrong with you. If you get rejected, says Mark R. Larry, a professor of psychology and neuroscience at Duke University, rejection parties, however, help us realize that this is an all too ordinary part of life, and that they allow us to share our rejection stories. Okay. It's harder to take a rejection as seriously if we're having a party about it, says Larry, the Times reported. Yeah, I like this. I really like that idea because
I like it a lot.
I think it's such a happy thing. It kind of like it goes, hey, this is unfortunate. It's something that bad that happened, but at least we're gonna have a celebration about this. And I think in some ways, it can kind of motivate you to keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like I know I got rejected from my first round of my graduate school.
yeah, and me too.
So
We're applying
I'm
it,
I'm in it now, so it's just like whatever.
yeah.
Besides, it's like not all the rejections are just because like, oh, a person's bad,
No.
As I've mentioned before, some people get accepted that really don't deserve it.
Okay, we have a discussion off air. Like, I want to know the dirt.
Like, gosh almighty.
Okay, but yeah, off air. We can't be calling people out. All right, so hopefully you found this entertaining. I know I did. This was very educational in some ways. Forgive the pun. But
You freaking pun.
all right.
Stop.
Well, we'll see you all in the next one, and have a great night, everybody. Later.